Most people leave their home every morning without realizing that the most dangerous moment of the day is not outside, but right at the door. Not because of what waits for them, but because of what they failed to say. Silence, when it is unconscious, is not neutral. It is a decision. And decisions, even the invisible ones, shape outcomes. Before your hand touches the handle, before your foot crosses the threshold, something ancient is listening. Jewish wisdom teaches that a doorway is not just a passage between rooms, but a passage between states of being. Inside, you are protected. Outside, you are exposed. And the transition between those two worlds is where intention either forms or collapses. Most people rush through this moment. They check their phone. They think about delays, bills, unfinished conversations. Their body leaves, but their words stay trapped in yesterday.
And when no words are spoken, whatever is already echoing inside becomes the script of the day. Here's what I want you to do before we go any further. In the comments, write one phrase that feels true to you right now. It can be a word, a short sentence, or even a doubt. Do this not for me, but for yourself. Because when you write something publicly, even to strangers, you turn a passing thought into a commitment. You give it weight. You give it presence. And presence is the first step of power. I learned this lesson early, watching how the smallest habits quietly separated those who drifted from those who advanced. The difference was never intelligence, money, or luck. It was awareness. Some people crossed doors asleep. Others crossed them awake. Jewish tradition treats words as living forces, not metaphors, not motivation, forces. What you speak does not describe reality.
It directs it. That is why careless speech weakens a day before it even begins. And that is why intentional speech can protect, focus, and elevate an ordinary morning. You may believe that a single phrase cannot matter, that life is shaped by events, not by sentences whispered to yourself. That belief itself is a sentence you have been repeating for years. There exists a 3-word Hebrew phrase, spoken for generations before leaving home, that does not promise comfort, but alignment. It does not deny struggle, but prepares you for it. And if you understand why it works, you will never walk out of your door the same way again. This is not superstition, and it is not optimism disguised as faith. It is a disciplined way of meeting reality with direction instead of reaction.
Once you see how this phrase reframes the mind and signals intention, you will notice how often the world responds differently. Doors will still exist, challenges will still appear, but you will cross them carrying something most people forget to bring. And that is where the ancient teaching quietly begins to reveal its depth. In the next breath, the meaning becomes unavoidable for you now. To understand why a simple phrase spoken before leaving home carries so much weight, you must first release the modern idea that words are harmless. In Jewish wisdom, words are not labels placed on reality after it happens. They are tools that shape reality before it unfolds. Creation itself did not begin with action, but with speech. God spoke, and existence responded. This is why Hebrew is not treated as a casual language. It is considered a language of formation.
Each word is built from roots that carry movement, direction, and intention. When something is named, it is not merely identified, it is activated. To speak, then, is to participate in creation on a human scale. Most people speak without awareness. They fill silence with phrases inherited from exhaustion, fear, or habit. Over time, these phrases become invisible agreements with limitation. Jewish teachings warn that repeated unconscious speech slowly builds invisible walls. You may not see them, but you will feel them when effort produces little return. There is a reason ancient sages placed such emphasis on how a day begins. Morning is not just the start of activity. It is the moment when the soul re-enters the body fully. That is why traditional Jewish practice begins the day with specific words, spoken before logic, before planning, before worry.
Words come first because direction must exist before movement. Leaving the home is an extension of this principle.
Inside the home, energy is contained. Outside, energy is exchanged. When you cross that boundary, you are not only entering the world, you are announcing how you intend to meet it. Silence announces confusion, complaints announce resistance, and careless phrases announce surrender. There is an ancient idea that every word spoken creates an echo, not immediately and not always visibly, but inevitably. Some echoes return as clarity, others return as friction. What determines which one comes back is not volume, but intention. This is where most people misunderstand spiritual language. They think it exists to deny reality, to pretend everything is good when it is not. Jewish wisdom teaches the opposite.
True spiritual speech acknowledges reality while refusing to be ruled by it. It does not say, everything is fine. It says, I am present, grateful, and moving. Doorways amplify this effect. A doorway is a pause between what was and what will be. Words spoken there are not diluted by distraction. They are concentrated. That is why blessings are placed on doorposts. That is why transitions are guarded with intention. Some people unknowingly guard their doorways with fear, others with hope. A few guard them with disciplined gratitude and forward motion. Those few tend to experience fewer coincidences and more patterns. You may begin to sense that this is not about belief, but alignment. About tuning the mind and spirit before the noise begins. And if words are truly architecture, then most people are leaving their homes each day without a blueprint.
There are mistakes almost everyone makes at this moment. The first is so common that it feels harmless, yet it quietly undermines everything that follows. Once you see it, you will recognize it in your own voice, perhaps even from this morning. Capitulo 500. The first mistake is deceptively simple, and that is why it is so powerful. It is the habit of saying or implying that everything is fine. Sometimes it is spoken out loud. Sometimes it is whispered internally. Sometimes it appears as silence filled with resignation. But the message is the same. Nothing needs attention. Nothing needs movement. Nothing needs growth. This phrase feels harmless because it sounds positive. But spiritually and psychologically, it functions as a closing statement. When you declare that things are fine, you signal completion. And what is complete no longer receives.
In Jewish thought, blessing flows toward what is in motion, not toward what has declared itself finished. Many people say this phrase as a defense. It protects them from acknowledging discomfort. It shields them from responsibility, but it also shields them from expansion. Over time, this language trains the mind to accept stagnation as stability. I once watched a man repeat this pattern daily. Each morning, when asked how things were going, he answered the same way. Fine. No complaints. No urgency. No direction. He was not lazy. He was tired. And tired people often confuse peace with numbness. Within a short time, opportunities stopped appearing, not because the world changed, but because his language had closed the door before they arrived. Jewish wisdom explains this through a simple principle. Speech is a declaration of state.
When you declare sufficiency prematurely, you interrupt the flow of potential. It is like telling the soil it no longer needs rain while the seeds are still forming underground. This does not mean you should complain. Complaints poison the ground, but false completion dries it out. The danger is not negativity. The danger is unconscious finality. Most people use this phrase because they believe humility requires minimizing desire. But desire, when directed, is not greed. It is participation. The mistake is not wanting more. The mistake is pretending you do not. This habit becomes especially dangerous when it is practiced at thresholds. When you leave your home declaring that all is settled, you step into the world unprepared for growth. You move through the day reacting instead of shaping. And when resistance appears, it feels personal, as if life has betrayed you. The truth is quieter.
Life responded exactly to the signal it received. This first error rarely causes immediate collapse. That is why it survives unnoticed. Its effect is slow, gradual, like a dimming light you only notice when the room feels cold. There are other errors layered on top of this one, each reinforcing the other. The next is more subtle, and because it feels like success, it often goes unchallenged, but it may be even more dangerous than the first. To see how deeply this pattern runs, you must understand what a doorway represents beyond wood and hinges. In Jewish wisdom, thresholds are moments where time briefly folds in on itself. They are pauses between what has been and what has not yet arrived. That pause is not empty, it is charged. Ancient teachings describe doorways as points of vulnerability and opportunity. Inside the home, energy is gathered. Outside, energy is tested.
When you cross that line, you are not simply moving your body. You are repositioning your attention, your responsibility, and your influence. This is why Jewish homes place sacred words at the entrance, not as decoration, but as a reminder. The door is a place of declaration. What you carry out determines what you encounter. Most people cross this space without awareness. Their mind is already ahead of their body, racing toward obligations or fears. Their words, if any are spoken, are leftovers from yesterday. But thresholds do not respond to yesterday. They respond to intention. Imagine a river crossed without looking. You may reach the other side, but you will not control how wet you become. Words spoken at thresholds function like stepping stones. They do not stop the current, but they give you balance. Jewish mysticism teaches that transitions magnify whatever is present.
Gratitude becomes protection. Anxiety becomes friction. Direction becomes momentum. This is why careless speech at a doorway carries more weight than the same words spoken elsewhere. There is also a reason blessings are short. Length dilutes intention. Precision sharpens it. A doorway does not require explanation. It requires alignment. When you say nothing, whatever emotion is loudest inside you speaks instead. And emotions, left untrained, are unreliable guides. They exaggerate threats and minimize opportunity. That is why silence at a threshold is rarely neutral. This understanding reframes the act of leaving home. It is not an exit, it is an agreement. An agreement about how you will meet resistance, how you will respond to uncertainty, and how much growth you are willing to allow. Many people believe protection comes from avoidance.
Jewish wisdom teaches that protection comes from orientation. You do not hide from the world. You face it correctly. Once this is understood, it becomes clear why false completion is so damaging. Declaring that nothing needs attention at the moment when everything is about to be tested is not peace, it is blindness. And yet, this is not the only error people make at the doorway. There is another, often praised as confidence, that quietly erodes awareness. It arrives disguised as victory, and it convinces people to lower their guard at precisely the wrong moment. The second mistake is subtle because it feels like strength. It is the belief that you have already won, that the work is done, that vigilance is no longer necessary. This mistake does not come from despair. It comes from comfort, and comfort, when it dulls awareness, is far more dangerous than fear.
There is an old saying that when movement stops, decay begins. Jewish wisdom echoes this principle in a different language. Life responds to motion, not to arrival. The moment you declare yourself settled, you quietly step out of alignment with growth. Many people reach a point where things improve slightly, and they relax their inner discipline. Their words shift. They stop expressing direction and start expressing satisfaction. This feels deserved. But language that signals rest invites stagnation. Psychologically, the mind interprets such language as a signal to conserve energy. It reduces alertness. Spiritually, the signal is similar. When effort is no longer declared, support slowly withdraws, not as punishment, but as consequence. This is why Jewish teachings rarely celebrate arrival. They celebrate effort, refinement, and persistence.
Gratitude is encouraged, but always paired with motion, never with complacency. There is a reason wisdom traditions warn against sleeping guards. When awareness rests, vulnerability increases. The world does not stop moving because you feel comfortable. Challenges simply approach from quieter angles. This mistake often hides behind phrases of self-assurance. I have done enough. I deserve peace. Nothing more is required. Each phrase gently closes the mind to further development. Over time, growth feels intrusive rather than natural. The tragedy is that this error often appears right before expansion. Many people abandon vigilance just as momentum begins to build. The door opens, and instead of stepping through consciously, they lean against the frame. Jewish wisdom does not condemn rest. Rest has its time, but rest without intention becomes negligence.
The key difference is whether rest is chosen consciously or drifted into unconsciously. When leaving home, this mistake manifests as casual confidence. No words spoken, no direction declared, just the assumption that things will continue as they are. But life is not loyal to assumptions. It responds to signals. This second error reinforces the first. False completion and complacent comfort work together. One declares that nothing is lacking. The other declares that nothing more is required. There is still a third error, quieter and more deceptive than the first two. It does not sound negative. It does not sound arrogant. It sounds reasonable. And because it sounds reasonable, it goes unchallenged for years. Yet this final mistake is the one that locks people into cycles they cannot explain. And until it is exposed, no phrase, no habit, no blessing can fully take root.
The third mistake is the most dangerous because it is built on a lie that feels comforting. The lie is the belief that reality is static, that what exists now is what will exist unless something dramatic intervenes. This belief hides inside reasonable thoughts, careful planning, and measured expectations, but it quietly strips life of its dynamism. Jewish wisdom rejects the idea of stillness. Existence is understood as continuous becoming. Every moment is either expanding or contracting. There is no pause button. When people speak as if things are fixed, they align themselves with contraction without realizing it. This lie often appears as acceptance. I am just being realistic. This is how life is. These phrases sound mature, but they carry a subtle resignation. They suggest that growth is an exception rather than a natural process.
Modern psychology echoes this principle in its own language. Repeated statements shape perception, perception shapes behavior, and behavior shapes outcome. When language implies immobility, effort diminishes. When effort diminishes, opportunity narrows. The cycle feels external, but it begins internally. Spiritually, the effect is similar. Jewish teachings describe blessing as something that flows. Flow requires openness. Static declarations interrupt that flow, not because growth is denied to you, but because you have turned away from it. This mistake is particularly destructive because it disguises itself as balance. It tells you not to hope too much, not to expect too much, not to reach too far. It promises protection from disappointment, but delivers confinement instead. When this belief accompanies you out the door, the world feels heavy. Challenges feel personal.
Success feels distant. You are not cursed. You are misaligned. The moment this lie is exposed, something shifts. Relief appears, not because circumstances change, but because possibility re-enters the room. Growth is no longer something you wait for. It becomes something you participate in. This is why words matter so deeply at thresholds. A doorway is not the place for resignation. It is the place for orientation. You do not need to know how the day will unfold. You need to declare how you will meet it. The good news is that alignment does not require long speeches or dramatic affirmations. Jewish wisdom favors precision over volume. A small phrase, properly constructed, can correct all three errors at once. It can acknowledge reality without freezing it. It can express gratitude without complacency. It can declare motion without anxiety. There is such a phrase, simple, ancient, repeated quietly by those who understand that destiny is not chased, but prepared for. Once you hear it, you may wonder how you ever left your home without it. And once you understand why it works, you will recognize that its power comes not from mystery, but from alignment. Before revealing the phrase itself, it is important to understand why it must be simple. Complexity feeds the mind, but simplicity trains the soul. Jewish wisdom values phrases that can be carried without effort, repeated without strain, and spoken without performance. A phrase meant for a doorway must fit inside a breath. The three-word Hebrew phrase does not deny difficulty. It does not claim victory. It does not promise ease. Instead, it establishes a posture, a way of standing inside uncertainty without collapsing or hardening. The phrase is this: Baruch Hashem, Ani Mitkadem.
Translated carefully, it means, "Blessed is God, I am moving forward." Each word corrects one of the three mistakes you have seen. Baruch, blessed, introduces gratitude without false completion. It acknowledges that something is already present without claiming that everything is finished. Gratitude here is orientation, not conclusion. Hashem, the name, removes the illusion of control. It reminds the speaker that effort is human, but outcomes are not owned. This dissolves complacency without creating fear. You are responsible for movement, not for guarantees. Ani Mitkadem, I am moving forward, destroys the lie of stasis. It does not say I have arrived. It says I am in motion. Growth is declared without pressure. Direction is affirmed without impatience. Spoken together, the phrase aligns the inner world before the outer one demands attention.
It prepares the mind to respond rather than react. It frames the day as a process, not a test. This phrase is not magic. It does not work because of sound or tradition alone. It works because it expresses truth in a disciplined way. When truth is spoken consistently, the mind organizes itself around it. Those who use this phrase do not escape struggle, but struggle meets them differently. Obstacles appear as information rather than judgment. Delays feel temporary rather than fatal. The phrase is most powerful when spoken quietly, just before the door opens. Not rushed, not dramatic, simply placed into the moment like a key into a lock. Over time, the repetition trains awareness. You begin to notice when you are no longer moving forward. You catch yourself when gratitude turns into complacency. Language becomes a compass instead of a habit.
This is why Jewish wisdom never separates speech from responsibility. To say the phrase is not enough. You must live in a way that allows it to remain true. But the phrase itself makes that easier. It reminds you of your role. What happens next is not mystical. It is measurable. When people change the language at their thresholds, patterns begin to shift. Not all at once, not dramatically, but consistently. And those quiet shifts, repeated daily, tend to tell a story that surprises even the one living it. I have seen what happens when people take this seriously, not as belief, but as practice. The changes rarely arrive as miracles. They arrive as alignment. Small decisions begin to feel clearer. Resistance becomes less personal. Momentum, once absent, quietly returns. There was a woman who had lived for years in constant tension. Nothing was collapsing, but nothing was growing.
Each day felt like repetition without reward. She did not change her job. She did not move cities. She changed only one thing: the words she carried with her out the door. At first, the phrase felt unfamiliar in her mouth. She noticed how often her mind tried to replace it with complaints or predictions, but she stayed with it. Blessed is God, I am moving forward. Slowly, her attention shifted. She began to notice opportunities she had dismissed as inconvenient before. Conversations changed. Decisions required less hesitation. Within months, her circumstances reflected the internal shift. Not because the phrase summoned outcomes, but because it reorganized perception. She could see movement where she once saw obstacles. Another man approached the phrase with skepticism. He did not believe words had power. He believed habits did. He treated the phrase as a habit experiment.
He spoke it each morning without expectation. What changed was not his income or status at first. It was his posture. He walked into challenges with less defensiveness. That alone altered how others responded to him. These stories are not exceptions. They are illustrations of a principle. When language aligns with growth, behavior follows. When behavior shifts, results eventually catch up. Jewish wisdom never separates the inner and outer worlds. They are considered reflections of one another. Change one consistently, and the other responds over time. This is why the phrase works regardless of background. It does not require belief in a specific doctrine. It requires honesty. If you are willing to move forward, the phrase remains true. If you stop moving, it exposes the gap. That exposure is not failure, it is feedback. Over time, those who practice this notice something subtle.
They stop asking for certainty. They stop demanding guarantees. They develop trust in process rather than outcome. This is not passivity, it is resilience. The phrase does not remove fear, it places fear behind movement instead of in front of it. As these stories accumulate, a pattern emerges. Prosperity, in Jewish thought, is not about accumulation, it is about flow. What moves multiplies, what stagnates contracts. This brings us to the deeper philosophy beneath the phrase, a philosophy that explains why speech, movement, and blessing are inseparable. And once this philosophy is understood, the practice stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. At the heart of Jewish wisdom on prosperity lies a simple but demanding idea. Words create worlds, not symbolically, but functionally. Creation itself is described as speech made visible. God said, and there was.
This is not poetry, it is a model. Human beings mirror this pattern on a smaller scale. What you speak repeatedly becomes the frame through which you perceive reality. That frame determines what you notice, what you pursue, and what you ignore. Over time, those choices solidify into outcomes that feel external but were internally rehearsed. Prosperity, then, is not something chased, it is something aligned with. When words, intention, and action point in the same direction, resistance decreases. This does not mean life becomes easy, it means effort becomes effective. Jewish philosophy does not promise abundance without responsibility. On the contrary, it places responsibility at the center. You are not entitled to outcomes, you are obligated to movement. Blessing meets effort halfway. This is why the phrase does not say, "I will succeed." It says, "I am moving forward."
Success is not claimed, growth is. The future is left open, but the direction is fixed. This worldview removes the exhausting pressure to control everything. When you release the demand for certainty, you regain energy for action. Anxiety diminishes not because problems disappear, but because your role becomes clear. Speech anchors this clarity. Each morning, as you speak words aligned with movement, you remind yourself of the agreement you are entering. You agree to show up, to respond, to adjust, not to freeze. Over time, this practice builds trust, not blind trust, but earned trust. You trust yourself to move. You trust reality to respond. You trust that stagnation is not your destiny, unless you choose it. Jewish wisdom emphasizes testing truth through action. Do not believe because you are told. Practice and observe. This is why the invitation is always experiential.
Try this for 7 days. Not perfectly, consistently. Speak the phrase before leaving home. Notice your reactions. Notice your language. Notice when you stop moving forward and why. You are not looking for miracles. You are looking for alignment. Subtle shifts. Clearer decisions. Reduced friction. At the end of those 7 days, you may realize something quietly powerful. The phrase did not change the world around you. It changed how you entered it. And once that realization settles, there is one final step, one closing act that seals the practice, not as a habit, but as a way of living. Everything you have heard returns to a single choice, the words you carry with you as you step into the world. You can leave your home declaring completion, comfort, or resignation. Or you can leave declaring gratitude, responsibility, and movement. Do not say, "Everything is fine."
Blessed is God, I am moving forward. This is not a denial of hardship. It is a refusal to freeze in it. It is the decision to meet reality awake rather than armored. When spoken daily, the phrase becomes more than language. It becomes orientation. It reminds you that life responds to direction, that effort invites support, that growth remains available as long as you remain in motion. There is an ancient blessing that captures this spirit. May you be guarded as you go out and as you come in, not protected from challenge, but accompanied through it, not spared from effort, but strengthened within it. Carry this with you. Speak it quietly. Let it correct you when you drift. Let it remind you who you are when the day grows heavy. And if this wisdom resonated, do not keep it sealed inside yourself.
Share it with 3 people who may be walking out of their homes each day without words, without direction, without awareness. Sometimes the smallest phrases, placed at the right threshold, change not just a day, but a way of living. Blessed is God. Keep moving forward.